Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee of the Whole meeting for November 3rd, 2011. I'd like to begin by having our village clerk take the roll call, please.
Mayor Ron.
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery.
Here.
Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Klebanow.
Here.
Trustee Nero.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Seneca.
Here.
Manager Searle.
Here.
Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Police Chief Mulhern.
Here.
Acting Finance Director Parker.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Brenzo.
Here.
Fire Chief Trout.
Here.
Village Planner and Assistant Economic Development Director Malik.
Okay. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item are the minutes of the October 13th and Committee of the Whole meeting, October 17th, Village Board meeting.
I put a correction. We had a typo on a name, so we put the corrected sheet. It was just a typo.
Any other questions? Moving right along, open forum. We have two open forum requests before us this evening. The first is from Ruth Steffens at 416 North Warwick. Please.
Good evening. I'd like to just, you guys have extended the moratorium for Northeast Acres for another year. What is your intentions with that year of what you're going to do? Those of us, myself included, live at the bottom of that hill. 4 feet of water, acre wide. So, sorry, I'm not a public speaker. Extend it for a year for developing an action plan with evaluation. How can we be kept informed, those are the residents, to know what you guys are doing? Public meetings, forums? Does anybody have an answer on that? And when's your next meeting for the water study issue?
I'm sure you're aware that we've done a very comprehensive stormwater study, not only your area, but the entire village. And there are many things that we would like to do, but unfortunately we don't have the money and the funds. But there are a lot of different alternatives being considered and discussed for various parts of the village, including your particular area. I don't know if we have anyone here from staff that wants to respond directly to this. Our Public Works Director is not here this evening. He could direct those comments better than any of the rest of us. But it is an ongoing study, but it's something that we're working very diligently in our budgetary process. We're looking at grants. We're looking at a lot of different ways that we can fund to get more of these projects going. But to say this is going to be on the docket for this coming year or in 2 years, I can't say that at this point in time.
So what does that do to the land value for us trying to sell our properties? I mean, I have a small house, an old house, sitting at the bottom of that. How do I sell it? Right now, you guys have made my property worth nothing.
When you bought your house, were you not aware of the fact that there was flooding like that occurring in that neighborhood?
My parents purchased a house in 1967. I inherited it from them.
Okay.
And no, they were not aware of it.
Well, land values in general have been going down.
Right.
The efforts that we will make, and we are planning to make long-term to improve the area, should eventually improve your land value. It is a process that's going to be a longer-term process. There are some major capital investment aspects or projects that we have to do in order to solve this problem long-term. But we're going to be making the situation better than what it is now.
But what can those of us do now? I personally am trying to sell my property.
Well, it's the same situation it would have been 5 years ago, or, there are certain market conditions that the village doesn't have any control over.
I mean, this issue on Warwick has been going on for more than 40 years that I know of. We have not seen any improvements of any kind.
Well, the village has only been studying this seriously for about 2 years, so I can't speak for any time before that. And the goal of this board is to try to improve that area on a regional basis in terms of the stormwater situation. That's what we're working towards.
Okay. No idea when the next meeting would be?
Well, we have regular meetings with our Public Works Committee. They meet second Tuesday of the month. We get regular updates in regards to stormwater issues at those meetings. Those are at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Well, we had it 6 o'clock, but normally it's 7.
6 o'clock.
That evening they asked for 6.
If you're specifically interested, we'll be happy to take down your information if you want to give it to us, and we'll make sure you're aware of those meetings.
Yes, I would.
I mean, they're all public meetings, and anyone's,
Can I get a
welcome
list
to
of those
attend.
public meetings when we can attend?
Yeah, if you want to leave your, one of our staff people there in the back, maybe Shannon in the back, if you want to take this lady's contact information, we'll be happy to get you some information regarding future meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is R. Spagnolo, 421 North Warwick.
The issues I have are pretty similar to what Ruth was talking about. The problem with flooding in that area has been bad for a long, long time. So far, as long as I've been living there, the extent of the help that we got is that the Public Works Department comes out and puts a marker in front of the water and a marker behind the water so that cars don't try to go through there, okay? And a lot of times when I'm talking about flood water that comes over the street as high as 2.5 feet, which means that in the ditches, it's over 7 feet deep, which somebody could drown in. Now, you mentioned that the village doesn't have the funds to take care of the problem. Would they have the funds to defend a lawsuit if somebody were to die in there?
They would have to. They wouldn't have any other alternative.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, sometimes you have to do things, in an order to prevent some further damage.
Right.
Now, I've seen a couple people get stuck in the street. I've seen kids go off their bicycles into the water. I mean, it's a serious issue.
Right.
Well, again, I think we're working towards longer-term, significant cost capital improvement projects that will address some of those things. I think what the mayor's suggesting is we don't have the funds to immediately go in and fix this problem overnight. As the previous petitioner mentioned, this has been a 40-year problem at least.
Yeah, I know you've only been addressing it about 2 years, but it's been a
Right.
problem longer than 2 years. And I think the major reason you started addressing it was because the problem became more widespread, and a lot more people from the village started coming in. And like I said, there is a danger issue, okay? But there are probably some short-term things that could be done to improve the problem, I'm sure.
We are looking at those things, and we will do whatever things we can.
I would suggest, please, come to a Public Works meeting, because our Public Works Director can explain it in great detail as to what has happened in that particular area, why it happens, why it continues to happen, and what would have to be done in order to rectify the problem in that area. That's why these meetings are open to the public. We meet, like we say, second Tuesday of every month, and it's usually at the Water Department about 7 o'clock. But I would stress highly, anybody who has these concerns, please come to these meetings. Because, well, right now, the tag that you're talking about, just to give you an idea, in today's time and pricing, it's about $10 million. Roughly. That's just roughly. And we have to deal with suburbs on either side of us as far as where the water goes. The water has to travel into other towns' systems too. That's part of the problem also.
Well, who controls how the floodwater leaves the areas? Is there somebody that has a gate that can be open and closed?
There is not a gate that can be open and closed. There is no gate.
But the rules are a lot stricter region-wide now than they were years ago. We can't increase the amount of flow outside of our boundaries without somehow compensating for.
Well, the reason I asked is because whenever it does flood, the time period of the drainage varies beyond what's reasonable. Sometimes it'll go down inside of a couple hours, and other times it takes a whole day. So that means that there's something that's blocking the flow of water. It should be consistent.
If there's issues like that, we can try to address those very much on a short-term basis.
That's what I'm saying. I believe that there are some quick fixes that will at least help the problem. Now, I've been living there for about 20, maybe 25 years, and it's increasingly gotten worse.
Okay.
We used to get one of those floods maybe every 3 years. Now we get 3 or 4 every year.
Understand.
So,
Again, maybe you want to leave your name and contact information with our
Okay,
staff
I'll
person
do
in the
that.
back. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, with the board's permission, I would like to jump to item 6. We have some individuals out in the hallway that have a little presentation that they would like to make regarding Westmont's 2011 Holidays celebration. Please, Bob Fleck and your entourage.
Okay. Wow, I could have brought Vince. I could have brought Baxter. I know. Oh, boy. He behaves as well as Finn. The Grinch.
Mayor Ron, Board of Trustees, thank you for accommodating us tonight and allowing us to throw a wrench into your meeting with the Grinch here tonight. We are here for 2 reasons.
No Christmas.
We are here to tell you all about and remind you that it's getting cold outside, the weather's changing, and holidays is right around the corner. The second reason we're here is to request board permission for the ordinance to provide us with some street closures for a number of the holiday activities that will be taking place next month. And of course, with me, I have a few of our characters that will be taking part in the holiday celebration this year. We all know the green face, our Grinch. I think he's going to be a little bit silly here tonight, which is great because we're going to have a lot of fun. And of course, we have Max, his trusty golden retriever, and Cindy Lou Who. So as you know, beginning Sunday, November 20th, is actually when things get underway. So November 20th will be the Decorating Day, Craft Bazaar, Food Drive, Lions Pancake Breakfast, and Sunday Brunch at Veterans Memorial Park. So that will be a very busy day, so we ask that, if you're around, please attend, come to the Pancake Breakfast. And then, of course, on Friday, November 25th, as we do every year after Thanksgiving, Frosty and Friends Parade and the opening ceremonies right here in downtown Westmont. Followed by Saturday, November 26th, our Holidays 5K run and walk. Other events that are going to take place are Breakfast with Santa, Lunch with Santa, Polar Express, the Frosty Golf Outing at Twin Lakes Golf Course, the Decorating Contest, phone calls and letters from Santa, the Bell Sonore Ensemble Christmas Concert at the library, and then Season Splendors on Saturdays, December 3rd, 10th, and 7th, where you can come with your children, see some local entertainment, and get your picture taken on one of those nights on December 10th with the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who, and of course, Max.
Smile.
A couple other things that I want to comment on. The Giving Tree. Giving Tree will take place and be set up over at the Westmont Community Center. The Giving Tree will have a star on it, and it is to help out needy families here in Westmont. So please, my family and I have done it every year. Take a star off the tree, help out somebody locally at Christmas in their time of need, and those gifts must be returned by December 14th. In addition to that, we have sponsorships for holidays. The family sponsor at $50, the holly ribbon at $150, bronze bow at $350, silver bells, $500, and the $1,000 Gold Star sponsor. Each one includes a tree, of course, over at the tree walk. And then, of course, as you move up in sponsorship, you can have an entire event sponsored in your name. Now, the more important reason that we're here tonight, part 2, is to request Village Board to consider an ordinance approving the permit for amplified sound in the Central Business District on November 25th. Close the first block west of Quincy Street on November 25th from 2 to 10 p.m. Close a section of Cass Avenue from Trowbridge Avenue to 55th Street on the 25th, 6:15 to 8 p.m. And then close a section of several streets between Burlington and Trowbridge on November 26th from 7 to 10 a.m. So we are still taking registration for our 5K run and walk. Registration begins at 7 a.m. I don't know how I'm keeping a straight face through this, to be quite honest. The Grinch is doing an excellent job. So that, of course, will be discussed later in the meeting, so I appreciate, Mayor Ron, you allowing us to come before you under your report to present this and, again, promote holidays. So look forward, be ready for opening ceremonies after Thanksgiving. Always a great time and a great month here in Westmont. And if the mayor would be so kind, before we're done, we'd like you to have a picture taken with the Grinch, Cindy Lou Who, and Max.
Can I stand back here?
Don't blame you.
Mr. Mayor, if you need these.
You may need those for the Grinch. All right.
Dog is so cute.
Wrong name.
What a cute puppy.
Get the mayor.
Oh, how cute.
The Grinch have too much coffee.
Camera's over there.
Camera's on the other side.
Where does, did he lose his? Yeah.
For relaxation.
Sheriff, sit. Oh, boy.
He doesn't answer to Max. No, he just, I wonder why. It's not his, I know. It's his stage name.
Good boy.
How cute.
Okay. Well, we have a little poem here.
Uh-oh.
That, of course, Miss Cindy from our preschool is going to be handing these out. She put this together today, so I'd like to read it for you. The Grinch discovered that there wasn't any way to keep red candy canes out of Westmont on Holly Jubilation Day. So he's devising a new plan, though not quite as mean. He's planning to take all of the red ones and turn them all green. We can't let this happen, so here's the plan. Come join us on December 10th to turn the Grinch into a happy holidays fan.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Great hair.
What a nice introduction to the
Great hair.
holiday season here in the Village of Westmont.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Wonderful activities for the,
One more comment, if I may. I didn't know if I was going to, I was in a rush to get over here, and it was because I was attending the opening at Westmont Standard Market. And I just want to say congratulations to the board for supporting that. It was exciting. It was The food was wonderful. It is a great improvement here in Westmont, and to walk in and see all the families that we knew there, it was very enjoyable, it was exciting, and then to see all the kids that we know from Westmont working at that new establishment, it was very exciting, and congratulations to the board for supporting that.
Thank you.
They've gone out of their way to accommodate residents who live here in the village,
Yes.
students in their part-time college schedules, high school students, so they've,
And they sure have, because we knew most of the kids that were working there.
all right,
Yeah. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grinch.
Comedy.
Okay, who wants to follow that?
Okay, moving right along. Reports. You can see that we've got a number of awards that we're going to be giving out on Monday evening. Recycling contest winners, Sierra Club Cool Cities Milestone Recognition, Certificate of Achievement for Excellent in Financial Reporting Recognition, and the Police Department Star of Valor Award. So we will look forward to those presentations on Monday evening. And Bob Fleck took my first item that I was going to bring up, and that is to make sure that everyone in the village gets a chance to visit our new standard market. It is outstanding, and we feel a wonderful addition to the retail market here in the village of Westmont. And staff has worked very hard to accommodate them. It's a large corporation. They've expended many millions of dollars to open that facility, purchase property, develop it, work with all the neighbors as closely as they can. They've done a great job, and we welcome all of them to the village of Westmont. The other thing is that the DuPage mayors and managers are rather upset about the fact that our mayor, the mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, is looking at all the water rates. And according to what I was reading in the newspapers today, our water rates could be up 70% within 4 years here in the village of Westmont. So the mayors and managers groups are organizing, protesting, and doing whatever they can. They've just started to try to reduce some of these costs. It makes us appear that they're repairing the Chicago water system on the backs of these suburban water suppliers. And I don't necessarily feel there should be a fee, but I think he's getting carried away with his fees. So whatever you can do to be aware and voice your opinion on that, I think we need to take care of that. It's a very, very important issue that's going to be facing us very soon. And I think that's the last thing that I have at this point in time, except that I would like to request a personnel, executive session on personnel after the regular meeting. Thank you. Next, our village clerk.
First, my sympathy to the Addington family on the loss of Jim's mother. Secondly, I just was notified that Joe Guzzo's mother passed away on November 2nd, and the wake will be Sunday at Tunes from 3 to 8, and the Mass at Holy Trinity will be Monday night at 9:30. So that, get those sad things out of the way, and of course, sympathies to the Guzzo family. Remember, everyone, you get 2 free leaf bags during the month of November on your garbage pickup day, so it's a great bonus. Take advantage of it. Don't forget to turn back the clocks. And as Bob Fleck just said, the standard market is magnificent. Westmont residents, get out there and go see that gorgeous, gorgeous grocery store. It is really something to behold, and congratulations to them and to the Economic Development Director and his staff. It's magnificent. So Fred and all of them deserve kudos. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, our village attorney, John Zemanek.
Nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Searle, Village Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add to the executive session request a report on pending litigation. And also I wanted to ask, first I wanted to ask Fire Chief Frank Trout to come forward. He just wanted to make a couple brief comments about upcoming Veterans Day celebration.
Thank you, Ron. November 11th, we will have the traditional Veterans Day ceremony at Ty Park at the Veterans Memorial off of Chestnut. The Veterans Memorial is located just west of the basketball or the tennis court, between the tennis court and the large sled hill. The ceremony will start promptly at 11 a.m. This year, we are going to have members of the Westmont High School with us during the ceremony. Last year, when we were having our ceremony, the high school principal was going by with a busload of exchange students from the high school. He stopped, brought them over, and they were so encouraged by it that after speaking with the principal, he agreed to come back this year with his high school. Along with them, the junior high is now jumping on board with one of their classes, and so they will also be there with their staff, and it's going to be a very, very good event. And you know, every year we get 50 to 100 people that do show up, a lot of civic-minded individuals, a lot of veterans organizations and civic groups, and so now this is just added to that. And it's a great feeling to know that our high school system and our school system is in search of true history, and the only way they can really receive that is by seeing the veterans, understanding what these different memorials are about. And matter of fact, the high school and the junior high school has invited us back, veterans from the Westmont area, to speak to those groups. And so anyway, it's another a great step forward for Westmont, and it's going to be a great event. I encourage you all to be there, and encourage all of our citizens. In conjunction with that, and Glenn, could you just make sure I put this on right? It was brought to my attention this last year, and I certainly don't know how I missed this, but Jimmy Robinson, who's the grandson of Mayor Robinson, Bill Robinson, who was a Vietnam veteran, received the Medal of Honor on April the 11th of 1966. And I remember the name Jim, and but I cannot place him. I went to South School, and he at the same time was going to the old North Acres School at Traube and Cass. In 1956, Miller School was then open, and they closed the old Acres School, and the kids went down the street to Miller. But Jimmy went to the old Acres School, and he also attended a Miller School. He then left the Westmont area, went to Lyons, and then to a few other towns. His family did travel a little bit. But Jimmy's basically was a Westmont boy. He was remembered by one of his relatives, Fred Munninger, who is the former superintendent of the Marker School District, and who's a relative with Jim. And we have his Medal of Honor citation, and I will be making up one for each one of the board members, plus extra ones for the press if they're interested, about his actions. And when we listen to these individuals, these soldiers that are coming back, and we listen to the Medal of Honor recipients who actually had lived, and they will say, I really did nothing. And we all know that they did, that we all know that those guys really put out 100%. They actually lived through it. But the majority of the Medal of Honor holders were given to individuals who died trying to save their buddies in most cases. Jimmy was with the 1st Infantry Division. There's a information, a memorial at the Contindi Military Park in Wheaton. I spoke to individuals up there. They have information. I'll be sharing some of the stuff that we have also with him. Jimmy is buried in Clarendon Hills Cemetery. And I believe he's in the lot with his grandfather and other members of the family. But here's a terrific young man from Westmont. And after speaking with the manager, I'm going to work through Steve May to see what we have to do to maybe have a street have an honorary name for Jimmy so that he will not be forgotten. And we'll see what else we can also do with a memorial, possibly something at Ty Park or at our Veterans Memorial Park. But it's something that we're going to get into. American Legion Post 338 will be supporting this, and I will try to encourage everyone else to. But we'd like to see you on Veterans Day. We'll be mentioning Jimmy, and we'll definitely like to see you all there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
And then the last thing I had was just to introduce Chief Mulhern. He is going to give a report that was requested by the board regarding the police department. And I believe you've got a PowerPoint presentation, and so I'll turn it over to you.
There we go. Good evening. Thank you, Manager Searle. Good evening. Last week, September 1st, Trustee Emery had asked for a report on the police department in reference certain activity that's been going on with the village, kind of a review of the activity, what the department has done to address that activity, and where do we plan to go from here. And so I will make that presentation tonight. This presentation will review our community policing and enforcement efforts. As most of us do know, there has been an increase in graffiti-related offenses in the village of Westmont recently. We have experienced graffiti historically throughout the village's history. However, it just tends to appear that there was more done these last couple of months, and also done in areas where it's more historic, it really hasn't historically taken place, but where it's more visible. And we'll discuss that a little bit. We graphed out the incidents from August of 2010 till October of 2011. And you'll see in there that we have 3 spikes. You noticed that around December of last year, we started a marked increase, which began to peak around February, which was 15 incidents. And then again in July of 2011, we had 20 incidents. And again, this last month of October, we had 15 incidents. The incidents in February, and you'll see the decrease once we realized that the problem and started addressing the problem through our enforcement efforts. We saw a dramatic decline in the amounts of graffiti being occurred throughout the village. And when I say this, these figures are village-wide. These are not just restricted to a certain area of town. These are village-wide. And when I talk about graffiti or tagging, it's both the same. It's called criminal defacement is the actual criminal charge. And also be gang-related graffiti, or it could just be tagging, someone just marking up somebody else's property, which I'll discuss in just a few minutes. They're both the same. Some may not be gang-related, some may be gang-related. Also, the other thing is you can tag the wall of this room, and that would be one mark of criminal defacement. And also if you, on a park bench, if you marked up a park bench or a stop sign, that's also one incident. So there's varying degrees. You can be talking graffiti that's maybe non-noticeable, then you have graffiti that is also very noticeable as well. I'd like to bring to everyone's attention something that occurred just last Friday. And I will talk a little bit more about this, but we had a person around 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday using a wide-tip felt magic marker, and these are some of the actual incidences, examples of this person's graffiti, was seen marking a garage door on a business along Ogden Avenue. An alert resident and citizens saw this, called the police department. Officers responded, got a description of the offender in a last known direction. They began looking for him, and approximately 2 blocks south of where he was actually first seen tagging a garage door, officers found him taking the cap off his magic marker, getting ready to mark a stop sign, and he was immediately arrested. As part of that arrest, we were able to, the officers were able to remember they had seen other taggings that were similar to this, and were able to connect those with him, and we intend to enhance the criminal charges that we currently have against him. The person was arrested for criminal defacements, and our investigation is continuing. But what you'll see here is what he was marking was not alive, living, dead. And that was his tag. It was not a gang, it's not gang related, it's tagging. He would tag, as you see here, signs, street signs, garages, residential garages. After he was seen on Long Ogden Avenue, he went behind a strip mall and proceeded to tag back of doors, air conditioning units, Commonwealth Edison boxes, etc., until the officer arrested him. What you'll see here is for the month of August, through our investigation, we had 1 tagging in August, 1 tagging in September, and we had 15 taggings in October of last year. This arrest, this person that was arrested Friday, is, we believe, is responsible for the 1 in August, for the 1 in September, and for 7 of the 15 that occurred in the month of October. Our department's response to incidents like this, and in crime in general, but in specific instances where there may be either gang activity or graffiti activity, officers are assigned special patrols. We continue our normal patrol tactics, but we also continue with special patrols. We'll put officers out there in unmarked cars, in plainclothes cars, in plainclothes, similar to what we call a tactical unit, and they will go out and observe. Patrol officers also will keep areas that have been tagged in the past under surveillance to see if it's going to be re-tagged again, because we saw a pattern with that. The performs were done, again, some of the patrols were done while the officers just doing their normal duties, and also we would put special patrols or special officers out there as well. They would perform extra watches again where the graffiti occur, and the arrests for graffiti sometimes are difficult. I just gave you one of our success stories. However, graffiti normally is difficult to catch in the act. Most of the time, the offenders will doing the gang, especially the gang type graffiti, is done at night in an area where it's not highly visible, where there's poor lighting, and it's a very opportunistic crime. And by that I mean, you could take someone with a can of spray paint probably under 2 minutes to tag a wall, depending on the severity or the how in-depth they get into their drawings. So it's something that can be done very quickly. Usually it's done alone, which hampers our investigation efforts because we have a lack of witnesses, we have a lack of co-conspirators. If someone does something alone and doesn't tell anybody, it's very, very hard if they aren't caught in the act to finally prosecute them or take any further action. Our officers also make contacts, persons acting suspicious or have suspected involvement in criminal activity. It's called a surveillance. Our officers will do types of surveillance in the regular marked cars. They will also do covert, what we call, or surveillance in plainclothes vehicles and tactical units. They'll do it out on foot. They'll do it in the vehicles. They'll walk around and they'll do surveillance of their contacts that way. Special patrols are done at varied frequency. Again, if we have intelligence that something may happen, if we, in a response, if we get tagged, something gets tagged, we will put the patrols out. We look for our intelligence, we get some information, and then we will, respond, put our patrols out based on that information we have or the patterns that we may see. If we feel a certain area is being targeted for either criminal activity or for tagging, we put the officers in that area and they keep an extra watch or, contain their patrols to that area. Officers also review reports of incidents, determine patterns, and develop suspects. One example was this arrest from last Friday. They went there and saw the example of the tagging that he was doing. They remembered seeing these in previous reports they made, and they were able to go back, pull up those reports, and be able to associate those previous acts of criminal defacement to one person. The officers do this all the time. We have gang officers. All our officers are out looking for the graffiti. We take photographs of it. We categorize it. We try to make sense of what it's saying. Is it sending us a message? Is it not just a message? Is it just something, just somebody walking by and marking something up just for the heck of it? So when they do see that, we categorize it. We try to lump it together. And also time too, we try to get our times, when our times that occurred, and where we put our patrols would be the best place to put our patrols. Arrests are made when probable cause exists. I can tell you, because some of our surveillances, 2 arrests that we have made were for 2 people that live in town for what's called a no gang contact order. And that basically is if you have someone who's identified and meets the Illinois State Police's gang criteria and has identified and has been identified as a gang member, if they ever get arrested, we go into court, we ask the judge to issue a no gang contact order. That basically says, the judge tells them you cannot have a contact with a known gang member. If you do, you violate the order, you can be arrested. We've had 2 arrests for no gang contact orders based on our surveillances and our watches and our extra patrols. And currently we have 2 people sitting in DuPage County Jail. The Village Board also recently amended the curfew and the graffiti ordinances, and they included the change in hours for the maids for the minors. It included a section for parental responsibility. We addressed the sale and storage of spray paint. That was changed. And also, what was very important to us in law enforcement, the removal of graffiti within 14 days that can be completed by the village in certain circumstances. We want the tagging to be down very quickly. The longer it stays up, it devalues our neighborhood, values our village, as well as can invite other cross graffiti, somebody else to come and write it, we call it re-tag over it. And so we try to avoid that as well. Our school officer, resource officer maintains a close working relationship with the local schools to see what's going on in the schools, if there's any crimes, any problems that they may see inside there, and also to provide a safe learning environment for all the students in all our schools. We conducted local surveys to see what our residents, our concerns that they have, how the police department may better respond to their needs, how we may better serve them. We had 2 types of surveys. We did a residential survey and we did a business survey. We're currently still reviewing those results and planning patrols and planning community responses based on that. Our concern was, what are the residents seeing that we may not be seeing? What are their concerns? How can we better address their services? How can we better address what their needs are? We held 4 coffee with the chief events throughout the village. I felt they were very successful. It opened up the lines and kept open the lines of communication that we have with our residents. They were held, one at Mays Lake Village, one at the police department, one at the Westmont Community Center, and one down at Westmont Yard. In total, we had approximately 75 residents attend. Very, very good information exchange, and a lot of friendships, I believe, that will continue for the future were made. We also met with local business owners. We went with the Downtown Business Alliance. They had some concerns about some activities they had seen in the area. They wanted to let us know about some things. So we also met with them in one of their morning meetings to learn of their concerns and how we can, again, adjust our patrols to that area. All our officers work closely with the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. We try to seek the most prosecution they can, the best prosecution we can, and we try to work with all the members of their office as well to get the best court outcome in court that we can possibly get. Our officers also attend very training, and we also maintain liaisons with other groups. We have officers that are part of DuPage as a gang enforcement group. We have officers that stay in touch with FIAT, our Felony Investigation Assistance Team, where we share services and share equipment. With the DuPage County Gang Task Force, officers attend a monthly briefing where we actually hosted them several times, where they meet with their counterparts throughout the county and share information on what's going on throughout the county. Something that may be happening in West Chicago could also very easily be happening here and vice versa. So it's a very good chance for our officers to get to meet their counterparts and exchange information. Officers are also receiving specialized training. We attend as much training as we possibly can, but in specializing in identifying graffiti and other criminal activity, we try to specialize as much as we can. Where do we go from here? The department will always continue to provide the services our residents have come to expect and deserve. And this is to be accomplished by we're going to continue the coffee with the chief meetings. We're going to have them quarterly, and we'll only have one each quarter. The best attended one was the one at the police department, where we had approximately 20 people. So we're probably going to stay with that since that was our biggest success. The next one is scheduled for in January, and I'll make sure it gets on the village calendar. But we'll have the quarterly meetings, and please suggest everyone to contact us. We attend meetings of local community groups, homeowners associations, and school groups. I'm going to be sending out an invitation. Just this last Tuesday, we were invited to the Lions Club to make a presentation. To my 2 deputy chiefs and I made a presentation there. It was very well received. We want to get out. Annually we meet with certain homeowners groups. We went out to get out and meet with more. We're always open and welcome to come and talk to someone. Again, open those lines of communications. What are your concerns? How can we better serve you? We also want to look into a partnership with our local newspapers to see if we can post a monthly community policing or a crime prevention article, different topic each month. See if we can have, we'll have guest authors from our department on certain areas, if something like involving car burglaries, home burglaries. Now at this time, you have to be worried about scams where people are trying to get, getting inside your house or getting, trying to trick you. There's one currently in Chicago where they're posing as police officers to get in houses. we want to be able to put something out like that. But it'll be an article, again, to better keep our residents informed. As a result of the business survey, one of the questions we asked is, would you be interested in learning more about crime prevention in your business? And it was an overwhelming response was yes. So we know this is done someplace else nationally. We don't know exactly where we've heard about this, but locally we might be a first. We're going to create a Westmont Business Police Academy. And right now we know that we're very sensitive to the business owner's time. We're looking at probably a 3-day academy, maybe 2 hours in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, maybe holding sessions each so we can accommodate both and address their concerns that they had. A lot of them want to know about identity theft, shoplifting, how they can keep their businesses, alarm systems, video surveillance systems. We would have our officers come in who are experts in those fields and be able to offer advice to our local businesses. We want to work closely with the Westmont Park District Patrol. For those who don't know, the Park District has volunteers or civilians who patrol the parks, stay at the parks, walk around, look for activity, also act as goodwill ambassadors at the park itself. We want to open the lines of communication. One of the chiefs with the Coffee with the Chiefs was brought up, the Park Patrol and the police, they work there, they're there, but they aren't working together. They seem to be there and they talk to each other, but there's really no concerted team effort, and that's what we're going to fix. So come next spring, before the Park Patrol goes out, we're going to offer them training. We're going to also offer them lines of opening up our lines of communication. If they see a problem, how can they report it, how we can get there better. We want them to start meeting our officers, see our officers, so that the first time they're seeing is not when they call for help, that they're going to know these officers on an ongoing basis. And again, we can propose, so Trustees Emery asked that we propose legislation on gang-related restitution. Yesterday, I posted a breakfast with Illinois State Senator Kirk Dillard and asked him if he would be interested in sponsoring some type of legislation, whereas if a gang member was arrested for a gang-type offense and there was an investigation that led up to that offense, that gang member may have to pay the department restitution for that investigation. It's currently done in some drug cases. He said he'd be interested, like to see something, so we're going to work more locally with the DuPage Chiefs of Police Association to see if there's interest among my counterparts to see if we can move forward with that. We want to also consider, when we'll be coming to you in the near future, of ordinances concerning synthetic marijuana and lookalike guns. Problem with synthetic marijuana, Aurora currently has a ordinance against it. What we're finding is that the creators of the synthetic marijuana, if they just change the composition of the chemicals by just vary just a little, it's enough to make it legal and get around the ordinance. And so we also look to understand that there may be state legislation coming as well. So we're going to keep our eyes open for that, research that, and come to you with a product that we feel that will best serve our needs for here in Westmont. And also, we'd like to have an ordinance on lookalike guns. It's an officer safety issue, but it's also an issue for persons who would carry a lookalike gun. And right now, if you're out by the railroad tracks and with my flashlight, put it on somebody at a distance of 75 feet, I'm not going to be able to tell whether that gun's real or not. And we have seen some incidences where usually kids, if they're airsoft guns, they're realistic. And in the past, we've seen examples too where even our officers look at it and you cannot tell the difference until you get up close and actually start picking it up. We're also going to research ordinances of other communities. Again, what other towns doing, what other communities doing, to see what they can do for ordinances that we can come and bring to you to help keep our community safe. And then we also are going to start assigning police personnel to assist the code enforcement personnel. Vicki Senesek, as we all know, is very hard at work in the multifamily housing area and with their inspections. We want to be able to try to give her help in the administrative field. We're going to try to assign personnel to assist her in making her schedule her inspections and be able to help her any way we possibly can as well as having our officers help her serve complaints whenever necessary. We want to make sure our elderly service officers provide services to our senior citizens in town. We have 2 officers, Sergeant Brian Gruen and the Detective Anthony Rinaldi. When we met with the residents up at Mays Lake, they felt that was a service that they really think, we had the elderly service out there for a little bit more in the past. They missed them, would like to have them back, so we're going to bring services for that. And we're going to still continue to conduct well-being checks on senior living centers during severe weather occurrences. In the summertime, when the severe storms would come through, officers would stop in approximately every hour, make sure they're okay, make sure their power was all right, make sure there's nothing to do. And especially in the winter time too, with the last blizzard, we made sure that the officers stopped make sure that there was nothing that they needed, that their phone communications were working, that their generators and their power's up and running. Anything we could do, we wanted to make sure that they knew that they weren't left alone. We also want to encourage the use of our crime trip line and our email. If anyone wants to anonymously report, and I didn't bring the card with me. Just one second. We have them here in the Village Hall. We have a crime tip line that our residents can call and leave a recorded message and remain anonymous if they want to report something that they see in their neighborhood, activity that they may want us to know about. One of the concerns we had from our survey was people were saying that they didn't want to call the police because they had to give their name or their phone number was seen on the caller ID, and they did not want that information out. Well, there's a way you can call it. It's a recorded line, and it's 630-981-6310, and that's 630-981-6310. You can call and leave a recording. That recording is monitored by my detective supervisor of the detective division, as well as my 2 deputy chiefs. And I can tell you we've had 2 success stories from that. We had 2 calls approximately a year ago where they said someone was dealing heroin out of a specific address. Our detectives went and did a surveillance, watched them go down to the city, buy their heroin, come back out. As they were attempting to sell the heroin or distribute the heroin in Westmont, we were able to make an arrest. And we had 2 instances such as that. So it does work. Again, if you're afraid to contact us by giving us name and information, there's a way to do that. The other option is it's all one word, Chief of Police, CHIEFOFPOLICE @westmont.il.gov. That's an email address that you can send information to, crime tips to, that's viewed by myself, the 2 deputy chiefs, and again, the detective sergeant. We all see these, we review these. So if you have a problem in your neighborhood that you don't want to call and want to remain us about, you can do that, and I guarantee you that I see those and that I will respond to you. I will delegate it down for further action investigation, but you will receive a response from me, if not that day, the next day, letting you know that I have received that email and that we are working on it. One thing I want to promote is the concept of the See It Reported, and again, last Friday was a perfect example. I'm going to claim that as our success story for probably the next couple of weeks. But, we asked the residents, if you see something suspicious, something out of the ordinary, something that doesn't seem right, please report it. If this resident Friday had not picked up the phone and called us, we would not have made the arrest and be able to put an end to a problem that we were seeing in our town that probably would only increased. And so they took it upon themselves to call us. Based on their information, we were able to make an arrest. A lot of times it may be nothing, a lot of times it may be something. We're asking everyone, if you see something, report it. We need your help. We can't be everywhere all the time. We need you to be our eyes and ears, and we need you to call and help us out. We're also going to keep the lines of communication open with our residents. One of the ways we want to do that is where we're going to work with our IT department, and we're going to create probably 2 or 3 minute videos that will be played on Channel 6 and probably on the internet. Informational videos, public service announcements. Again, Christmas time, what would be some tips to keep you in mind, keep your presents out of view in your car, lock them in your trunk, don't put your laptop in your trunk. Crime prevention tips, things that you can do and see to help us to keep yourself and your family safe. Before I hit the questions, I would like to say, and we talked about this at the Lions Club, and I close this at every meeting with the coffee with the chiefs. I am your police chief for our residents. I am responsible for the actions of the police department. I am your chief. If you have a problem that you need help with, any way the village can offer you services, please feel free to contact me or members of our department. Our department works for our residents. We are here to serve and protect you. Our goal is that, and that's our only goal. We need your help in making that a goal of being safe and sound in our security in our neighborhood. But we need your help. If you ever have a problem, a concern, or anything, please feel free to give me a call at any time. I will return your call. Send me an email, either at Chief of Police or my regular email is my first initial T, last name Mulhern @westmont.il.gov, and I'll send you a response back by email. Please don't ever be afraid to contact your police department. We work for you. We are here to help and protect you. And with that, I'll open for any questions you may have.
I'm glad to see you're doing the look-alike guns. The situation on those is even worse because now the gun manufacturers are licensing the rights to make the airsoft guns exactly like real guns, except for the orange tip on the end, of which a lot of people painted in, and you can't tell. They're metal, they're heavy. and they look exactly like them.
I saw one approximately a year ago where I couldn't tell the difference. The detectives came to me and said, they held up the real weapon and they held the identical look-alike weapon up and said, you tell me which one's the right one. And even the weight was very, very close. It wasn't until you tapped it that you could hear the tinniness of the metal compared to a real weapon. It's amazing. And again, you put it at a distance of 50 to 75 feet away. The officers may not be able to tell, and you point that at somebody, you're jeopardizing the officer and you're jeopardizing their own life.
There's ones out there 5 feet away, you can't tell the difference.
I agree.
What a stupid thing to come up with.
It's popular. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you had a gun that, you know, didn't look anything like a real gun, and I wouldn't want at the time anything that looked like a real gun. Nowadays, it's very, very popular.
And it's handguns, it's rifles, it's machine guns, it's the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Thank you, Todd. Excellent presentation.
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And anything?
That is it, thank you.
Moving right along, trustee items. Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Wanted to congratulate College of DuPage on their 20th anniversary this past Saturday at the Westmont facility. It's, you know, we are really fortunate here in Westmont to have that satellite here. You know, we provide a lot of students to that location, and students do come from all over DuPage County, and that means they eat in our restaurants and they service our businesses. They come to our businesses. So congratulations to them. It was a great event, and Debbie Pia did a wonderful job putting that together. Trick or Treat Trail was absolutely phenomenal. It was so much fun to see all the kids out there. I think I heard 500 kids came, and it was a beautiful day. It just couldn't have been better. Also, some of us attended the 100 Club of DuPage, so I wanted to thank Chief Trout for inviting us to that. It's really, really a very, very nice ceremony where they give awards to fire and police for acts of valor. So every year it's just very, very touching and really, really a nice event. And also, like everyone else, Standard Market is just awesome. If you haven't been there, tomorrow is the official opening. Make sure you go. It's just unexplainable. It's like nothing I've ever seen. We ate in the restaurant, which was awesome. The food is great. I understand their chef is the chef that actually started the Wildfire restaurants way back when, so you know how good that food is. And just please stop by. You won't be disappointed. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
Thank you, sir. Has the manager heard anything about Commonwealth Edison and the pole farm on Cass Avenue? It looks like they're gone and they're staying.
I haven't heard nothing new, but when I got back to my office this afternoon, I had a phone message from my contact on another issue, which I need to return the call tomorrow. So I will ask again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm afraid what the answer is going to be.
Yeah.
And then I had a call from a resident that was concerned about construction sites where the village, and this is what I'm being told, I haven't looked into it yet, but I told him I'd ask, does not require doors on the outside of construction sites going in them or locked doors. He said he had called the village and asked about that because there was vandalism in one of the buildings in a house that's near him. And when he called up, he said that the village, whoever the staff member was, is that there was no requirement to lock a door on a construction site.
That's usually true.
Huh?
That's usually true. My experience is you don't have to lock them up.
So it's kind of like asking for trouble, though, isn't it?
A lot of copper's been stolen from houses being built because there's value there.
I've heard of that in other communities too, where they're not locked and people will take things.
So then it's just tough luck on the guy who's building it, or stupid on his part for not locking them? I guess what he's worried about is that it's attracting an element coming into a neighborhood.
Sure.
That he can go to a house next to him or across the street from him and steal stuff, and that's not really the kind of people anybody want in their neighborhood.
Right.
Usually once the improvements of value start getting placed into the house, especially the drywall and mechanicals, et cetera, they then get locks on the door, or they'll nail shut the front door and have one locked door. So there's no code that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Wow.
And that should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Nero.
Just one thing. I just wanted to congrats to the Chamber of Commerce for the Trick or Treat Trail. It was a lot of fun. Even I got a lot of candy and had a lot of fun, so I look forward to doing that again next year. That was great. That's all I have today. Thank you.
The biggest trick-or-treater on the trail.
The only thing that I'd like to check on, and it's probably going to be something may have to do over the next couple of weeks. But I'd like to sit down maybe with code enforcement, the building department, and go through some of the situations that are taking place down in the Anchor Rock area, getting complaints on trucks idling overnight, parking. I thought we had a policy of no parking overnight on streets. Comments have come to me that he's running out spaces for trucks to park in that particular area. So I'd really like to see what we could possibly do about correcting this, because I think we had a situation, I know for a fact, up next to Ty Park at one point, that trucks were parking up there and idling, and we said, no, absolutely not.
Right, so this is on the street overnight.
Yeah, on the street overnight, and plus some of the other sections of that. So I'd like to see what we might be able to do to get this corrected, or at least, several times a night, go down through there and tag these guys or ticket them or tell them to move on. But yeah. I don't think that we should start allowing there to be like a I guess you want to say a truck stop in our village.
Right.
Which is what is starting to happen.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Emery.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I echo about Standard Market, and it was really exciting on opening day. It was a bunch of adults that it was like the opening of Great America, and we were all running around going, "Oh wow! Oh, would you like these? Would you like these conga bars? This is the last one." As soon as they put stuff out, people would snatch it, and it was so much fun because everybody was hyped. Everybody was just. There was so much energy in this. One woman, I was buying the last stuffed eggplant. She said, "That's mine." And I said, "Let's fight about it. We can get into progress." So, kudos to them. It was fun, and it's going to be great. I'm really, really happy they decided to come here. And even Larry Forsberg, he and Ron stopped by. My sister and I were in the restaurant with a full cart of stuff. But Larry picked up a loaf of bread, and he's like, "Look at this, Standard Market, Westmont." So it was so much fun. And kudos to Chief Mulhern. I know that sometimes my tactics are, they're usually, sometimes not, but usually there's a method to my madness. And when it appears that I am being critical and I say to him, there's punk behavior and graffiti, what are we doing about it? I know that he takes everything extremely seriously and extremely to heart personally, as well as the deputy chiefs, the sergeants, and on down. And I knew that by sort of throwing out the challenge, he would respond multiple times over, which he obviously has. So I appreciate it greatly. But what is accomplished here is the town knows that there are things going on here. They are being addressed. We are on the offensive. The chief has made it very clear, and he's also made it very clear that people have to get involved and they have to get active in, having these meetings with the chief. And so, as a result, they've been to Sue and I's homeowners association and talked about Neighborhood Watch and talked about what they can do to help us help ourselves and on like that. And I'm getting calls of people saying, we've been pretty quiet, but we're really having a problem with gang activity in our association, and can we sit down and have a meeting? So, when I threw the challenge out there, I was kind of like, I closed my eyes because I know I was just going to get hit in the face with the response. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly. So, but I want to encourage everybody to get involved and stay involved. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Klebanow.
Just a couple of items. Sympathy to the Guzzo and Addington families for their loss. It's awfully hard, especially around the holiday season as it's coming upon us. And just a reminder for everybody out there, since daylight savings time, as you're changing your clock, please remember to change your batteries in your smoke alarms and even your CO detectors, please. At Christmas time, you're going to see the wreath out in front of the fire department, and the sign is keep keep it green or keep it, you don't want it to be changed because all the fires, if they have a fire, they have to change the light bulb on it. What is it? They keep it red or?
Keep it red.
Keep it red. So you want to make sure that we do that. So please remember to, check your batteries and get them changed for the year, for at least half a year. So thank you, and that's all I do have.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to go under unfinished business. I think that's going to take quite a bit of discussion, and we've got some residents and some other individuals here. I'd like to take those items so they don't have to sit here that long. And with that being said, under new business, start with lot coverage variance request 324 Black Hawk Drive. Board to consider an ordinance approving a variance request for lot coverage greater than 30% in a defined moratorium area for the purpose of constructing a single-story addition. We have a petitioner here.
I am Joe Pavone with Bradford and Kent Builders. And the party, Sandra and Edward Timmerman, they're the folks who would like to build a sunroom. And I realize you have a lot coverage ordinance, and we're not adding to the lot coverage burden. We're actually taking out a patio, which is included in the lot coverage, and reducing the total lot coverage when we're done building the sunroom. So patio comes out, and I think I don't know if you all have calculations and information on this, but after it comes out, the total lot coverage does get reduced. And at the last zoning meeting, we also agreed to take out some additional patio blocks of 82 square feet, so we would further reduce the lot coverage. So even though we exceed the lot coverage in totality, we're still going to be less after building our sunroom addition. The Timmermans bought the house in '95. The driveway, patio, sheds were all there at the time when they purchased the house, so they had no concept of a lot coverage at that point in time. And again, at this time, I realize you've had some flooding issues and trying to control the growth with the lot coverage. But again, when this project is completed, it will have less lot coverage than presently. So we're asking you to consider this as an approval. Apparently at the last meeting, I understood we had a recommendation for approval from the zoning board.
Planning and zoning.
So again, the Timmermans have been, like I say, in the home since '95. They've done a lot of work to the home. They remodeled it extensively a few years ago with the intention of phase one being the interior renovation, and then this being a phase two, and then we find out about this. But in any case, we look for your approval on this.
Questions from board members?
How did the house ever get to 48% in the first place? The lot coverage.
Pre-95.
Yeah, it was built a while ago.
So there was no coverage at that before then, okay.
It was also a substandard size lot when originally approved. I guess that whole area has some substandard size lots, and I don't think you can build on that size lot anymore.
When did they make any changes to the driveway or anything?
It's always been there.
It's always been there. It's never been redone or added to?
I don't,
increased?
they resurface it maybe, but they haven't. No.
Okay.
Original.
This is a tough one.
It's unique. It's unique because here we have something over, lot coverage, and this improvement's going to actually bring it down. So if we vote no, it's going to be way over, and if we vote yes, it's going to be a little bit less. So
that's our feelings.
Personally, I think this is probably a good project because it is going to bring it down a little, and it's a beautiful home.
But if we allow this one, where's the next one go? The whole object of putting a moratorium on that was because of the lady that came in earlier with the water issue.
But this is reducing the lot coverage.
Correct.
By 0.5%. I mean, we're talking fractions here. We're talking about 48.4% down to 47.9%.
Again,
Granted, it's a reduction. I'm not arguing that with you.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
it's small.
We're talking,
Very
we're
small.
talking 0.5% here.
Again, at the last meeting, we've agreed to take out another 82 square feet, so it improves by 82 additional square feet. So the
I have no problem
original
with it.
submitted calculations are also improved.
I don't care if it's 1 square foot. Anytime it comes back the other way, I'm all for it.
I agree.
And
I
it's
don't
an
care if it's
improvement. It's an
1/8 of a
improvement, and
percent.
you're
It's
reducing.
going the right direction.
What is staff's recommendation on it?
Staff had continuing concerns just with the idea of setting a precedent in this area, especially given the lengthy discussion over the last 2 years, the stormwater study that's nearly concluded, and the analysis that some long-term solutions are probably going to be necessary within this area. It is a cumulative problem, as we've kind of alluded to, so while the work that's proposed will bring it down overall, it was a combination of many homes over time with modifications that exceed our current requirements that brought us to where we're at today. So really the primary concern here is precedent, and are there any other opportunities to potentially reduce existing lot coverage to bring it a little bit more closely in line with what we've established over the last year or so with this moratorium. Could you perhaps summarize for the board what those changes were and in which location?
Changes being,
The reduction at planning and zoning. I have a plat right here.
okay. Well, this concrete patio.
Give it 1 second. Hold
Oops.
on, sorry.
All right. Concrete patio shown here was coming out, and the sunroom was going in its place. And if I'm not mistaken, the patio was 246 square feet, and the sunroom was 220. We've now agreed to take these patio blocks out, which is 82 square feet additional. So when we take out the combination of the patio and the concrete blocks, we're gaining 100 square feet of reduction. So, again, from the standpoint of it being reduced, I don't think there's going to be an impact. The two adjoining neighbors, the elevations are a bit higher, so I don't think there's any impact to the neighbors. Again, we're gaining. So if the precedent is of concern, again, anybody's willing to reduce. Every neighbor took 100 square feet out, your problem would get a lot better.
And in order to reach that over time and cumulatively, again, we have to keep the big picture in mind. One of the comments that had come up at the staff level was, perhaps looking at the driveway turnaround area to see if there was any opportunity to gain some green space there. That was something that had been discussed. And
Fred and I talked about it. Here's the issue. Now we take out a turnaround area. They're on a corner lot. So you got Black Hawk and Naperville Road. It's probably going to become a safety issue if they have to start backing out onto Naperville Road, not knowing what's coming around the corner from Black Hawk. So to compromise safety for a little green, I wouldn't encourage it.
I'm really, really against when somebody comes in and says that we understand there's a moratorium, and the moratorium was enacted for a purpose. And what they intend to do furthers that purpose because they're cutting back. And if they left it alone, there's nothing we could do about it. And when somebody says, I'm going to come back, and we sit there and say, well, what else can you do? And, change your driveway and all that, I think that's ridiculous. What they want to do increases the value of the house, lowers the footage, and so enough already. That's the way I look at it. So as far as what they're asking for, which is build their sunroom and take out the pavers, I don't want to hear what else they should do to improve the situation. They already are.
Have they talked to the neighbors on both sides? Are they aware of what's going on?
They are aware. I believe one neighbor's present.
Yeah.
Right.
Present to testify.
Okay. In favor?
Yes, I have a statement.
Yeah, it's attached.
I have absolutely no problem with this at all.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have no problem with it either.
Can I ask something, Bill? Excuse me a minute. You said you're taking the concrete patio out, or is that where the sunroom is going?
Well, the patio has to come out in order to put in a foundation and a new slab for the addition, but the size of the new addition is less than the concrete patio. And then we've also agreed at the last zoning meeting to take out the row of concrete blocks behind it. So like I say, in essence, I think we're gaining 100 square feet to the better.
What type of roofing is going to be on this patio? Is it going to be a hip or?
It's going to be basically a sunroom with a gable
A-frame?
roof of sort. I
The
believe.
gable roof?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to have gutter on it so you'll be able to direct the water coming off your roof to stay on your property? That's what I'm looking for.
Yes, it would
Okay.
be. Yes, it would
It's
be.
not going to be directed towards your neighbor's lot. It'll stay on your property.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Trustee Nero, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's if you're improving it, at the same time reducing it, I think that's setting a good precedent. I hope a lot of the neighbors will do that. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I hope it catches on.
Joe says he has an additional statement, so I'd like to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
You did. Just for the record, Joe Hernsrich, 224 Naperville. My wife and I are neighbors immediately to the west of this property. And we have no particular objection to the addition that the neighbors are proposing for the site. It reduces the coverage somewhat. The basic situation that they have is like their driveway, that turnaround area, they're in a desolate position to the roadway. When their property was sited, the roadway was then elevated on Blackhawk and Naperville Road when it was constructed in '78. So when the engineer raised the roadway, their driveway went down. All of our driveways used to go down to the road. There was a 3-foot drop to Naperville Road when I moved into the house in 1975. When the road was rebuilt and then the sidewalks put in, the roadway has been lowered and elevated in such a way that I'm almost level with the road, and the timbermans are actually below the roadway. If you notice, you go down and then have to go back up in their property. Secondly, the development, it consisted of 8 lots. The development itself was called Myers and Mayers re-subdivision of lots 10 and 11 of Block 3 of the Westmont Northeast Acres. That property consisted of 105,000 square feet approximately, of which today 25,000 square feet, or 23% approximately, are covered with structures and hard surfaces. And my estimates of property coverage and size of lots are based on the property assessment, and I have the information for the board here, which was given, or the property records which Downers Grove Township has. And it might vary a little bit from what their engineering record shows, that they actually have a little less square footage. 2 of the lots are extremely disadvantaged at roughly a little over, one at 7,600 square feet, one at 7,900 square feet. Other lots in the development are as large as 20,000, almost 21,000 square feet, 17,000 square feet, 12,000, 11,000, and 9,000 square feet. The coverage varies from the Timmermans at about 49%, me at 36% approximately, to the lots that face on Naperville Road at Blackhawk Drive, the other lots at 13 and 17% of coverage. So of the development, there's very little covered. Plus also we have the large retention area at the park. Also, we do not contribute to any of the problems on Warwick Avenue. Unlike was contested at the time the road was repaired last year, the sewer does not go to the west and flow to the west. The sewer flows to the east from our area and flows north up to through the new Blackhawk Drive sewage system. So those issues, it's not going to contribute to the worst problems within the area of Warwick Street in any way, shape, or form. And as a development, it was allowed. I'm sure there's tons of anecdotal information. I didn't feel like coming and spending hours going through FOI requests to look for all the zoning records from 1973, because it was after you set the 7,800 square foot minimum for that lot. And intentionally, if it had been zoned today, no other area that had been subsequently subdivided was subdivided to as small a number, a large as number of lots. The next block over has 3, and the other block has 4. So there's one too many lots is what it was that was subdivided out of that area when it was created. So I'll give you gentlemen and ladies can each have a copy of this.
Great.
This is the same analysis I had last year with some additional information.
Thank you.
And neither of us have any objection to it.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board?
Joe's done another excellent job as usual.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Even with the prepared by.
Next item, downtown development permit, 36 North Cass. Board to consider an ordinance approving a development grant request for J. Wilder Studios, a photography studio in the downtown B1 district at 36 North Cass.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Jovanovich. I'm currently a resident at 45 West 59th Street, and I'm interested in opening up a photography studio at 36 North Cass. I'm in the process of negotiating the purchase of the building, and I will be an owner and operator and residing in the apartment above the storefront.
Thank you.
I've been a commercial photographer in the Chicagoland area since 1986 and a resident in the western suburbs since 1994. I've been self-employed as a photographer my entire career since I graduated from Brooks Institute, which is a photography school in Santa Barbara, California. And my intention is to continue my commercial photography business at this location and add to it consumer portraiture in addition to my, my business-to-business clients. I have the good fortune of picking a location that was previously a photography studio, so it is virtually set up for that purpose already. And looking forward to being part of downtown Westmont.
What's your timeline? When do you think you'd be?
I'm hoping for Valentine's Day, which probably means St. Patrick's Day.
Do you anticipate? Got it. Do you anticipate walk-in customers, or you know, who's your, where do your customers come from? Will it bring people downtown Westmont, or
yeah,
via phone?
I'm looking to bring my professional commercial experience to doing portraiture. My business model is not going to be the mall picture people, where there's 3 things going on at the same time. It's all very hectic and all very chaotic. My intention is to be very customer service oriented, that when someone arrives for portrait, that I will spend the previous hour getting ready for them, not having them wait 10 minutes because I'm running late with what I was trying to do before they got there.
Right.
So yes, eventually, once I can build up a clientele, the doors will be open. I will have someone in the front to field inquiries and make appointments, but it won't necessarily be a walk in the door because I'm having a good hair day and would like to get some photos taken.
Got it.
How come your application says the business name is Bug Wilder and now it's J. Wilder?
My corporation is Bug Wilder Studios Limited. I incorporated that a couple of years ago. The name Bug Wilder is a personal nickname for my son. And in trying to search for a very unique web address and a very unique idea for my business name, I've been using that for, well, since he was born 15 years ago. And looking at moving my business away from just commercial work and looking at a storefront and visible signage and discussing it. Bug Wilder, I'm still in love with that name. I think it's very catchy and kind of edgy, but the kind of clientele that I'm hoping for, I'm looking for something a little more traditional in the name and something a little more approachable. If I was going to specialize just in children, I'd stick with Bug Wilder all the way. But I'm looking at trying to do some more upscale portraiture, so trying to classy up the name of the business a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you think having 2 other photographers within pretty close proximity is going to be a hindrance?
I've been doing my research a little bit. There are several photographers in Westmont. I believe that they have home-based businesses. The building to the north of this address currently hosts a photographer who uses the upstairs office space on occasion when necessary to do a sitting. It's by appointment only, and My understanding of that business is it's generally out on location, servicing dance schools and that type of photography.
Okay.
And that space, I looked into that space as well. It's currently seeking leasing, and the realtor told me that if that space was completely leased out, the photographer would move to a different location.
Did I notice you're going to be doing weddings?
Yes, I have the very good fortune of coming up through my business as an assistant to other photographers. I had some really wonderful mentors, some really great people that helped coach me through my career. And one of the things that I want to do is be able to move into areas of business where I need assistance and I need other people to work with so that I can help someone else develop an end of the business. I'm getting a little long in the tooth for running around after brides. So my hope is to find some young photographer who is trying to get a leg up and get things started and eventually have that part of my business but not have to go doing all the running around.
So if you do have some other help, there's plenty of parking in the back?
Yes, the back is not striped. I'm told that there's 9 spaces designated behind the building.
Are you going to develop everything there on site, because is it all digital, so you're going to do your printing and everything?
I came up through the traditional photo methods. My hands and my fingers are no longer yellow from the chemistry, thank goodness. It's all digital now. I haven't gotten anything wet for almost 10 years. I was an early adopter of digital work. I may put in digital printers, but there's no wet processes
There's no
anymore.
chemicals, that's not the old-fashioned way, but you will possibly be printing your own with your printers then?
Perhaps. The way I work my business now is it's all done outsourced lab. It's just more convenient. It's one less thing you have to figure out and deal with and fix at the last minute because something broke. And
I was just questioning the weddings, because we've got some fabulous places downtown for you to have the business cards out there to promote places for their cakes and all sorts of things, so.
it's a very nice downtown.
One-stop shopping.
Yes, it's a very nice downtown. I'm looking forward to co-oping business with the cake place across the street, the frame shop down the block. Yeah,
Catering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I, of course, am
you
much
name it.
more interested in pet photography than weddings, but that's a different issue.
That is on my.
I know, I saw in the book, so.
And I would imagine that Mrs. Beller has introduced you or told you about our Chamber of Commerce, so I hope that you'll consider
Yes, actually, I was
joining our Chamber of Commerce. It's
Absolutely.
very vibrant, very energetic. And
Absolutely, and I was very curious about
Great job.
your portrait. I hope it all turned out exactly the way you were hoping.
Great. Excellent.
I would like to be able to offer you an alternative for next year.
Love it.
Well, it sounds like you have a very good business model.
Yes.
Thank you.
Experience to
Yeah.
back it up. And sounds like it'd be a wonderful addition to our downtown
Yeah, it'll be
business
nice to have you there.
mix.
Be very, very happy to be here.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
This will be on our agenda for Monday evening for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, 4 East Ogden Avenue, final plat of subdivision request. Board to consider an ordinance approving a final plat of subdivision request from Super Value to Jedco Properties Jewel Express.
Tonight we have Ben Bussman with us on behalf of the Jewel Express. He's been the engineer representative going through the subdivision and platting process. And tonight before us, we just have the perfunctory measure of telling you that yes, all of the final engineering is in fact completed according to standards. The planning engineer has signed off on it. And the best news of all is that all of the 2004 outstanding issues from the plan development when the Express was done and the Jewel improvements took place are finally complete. So we're wrapping up a lot of old loose ends.
This is a final plat, right? Not a preliminary
Correct, this
plat?
is the final plat. And of course, if you have any questions, Mr. Bussman is here as well.
Questions from board members?
Nope. Pretty cut and dried.
You know if they're going to be changing the name?
I'm not sure. I hear rumors, like everybody, but they're not really telling me too much.
I could interject. Maybe I may have an update.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you have the same information, but within the last week or so, I've talked with a representative of Circle K. They plan to begin operations and then kind of take that as it comes. So it won't be necessarily an immediate rebranding, but it'll probably be something that comes through the pipeline.
That's what we heard.
I did receive an email about, I believe there's existing contamination on the property, perhaps a tank that was removed, and an attorney wanting to do a groundwater restriction ordinance, much like was done at 63rd and Cass, and is very common and is necessary in order to get an NFR letter from the IEPA that basically restricts well water use within an identified perimeter around the gas station.
When would they have replaced a tank over there? That station's not that old.
It's true, that is a brand new
Unless
station.
there was something there a long time ago that.
Unless there was a station there.
Almost all those corners had a station on them, didn't they?
It seems like it.
I've
There
got to
may
make
have
sure it's the
been.
same
Walgreens
property.
was in-
He identified that corner, and I assumed it was this property. Before I start spreading information, I better double check that email and make sure he wasn't talking about the one
There
across
was a
the
former
street.
service.
Walgreens property.
Actually, at several corners, there were former service stations, but the last one was the one you're
Gas
thinking of.
stations. Every intersection had four.
So can you report back
I will.
to us on Monday before the vote?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to go back to number 2. Single-family residential rental licensing ordinance. Or to discuss preparation of an ordinance that would license all single-family residential rental units.
I believe I'll take the lead in starting this discussion. I guess by way of background, several years ago, the board approved a multifamily rental licensing ordinance, which licenses buildings of 3 units or more, requires a license, and requires annual inspections, requires a license fee, et cetera. The purpose of that ordinance was to ensure compliance with the international building codes, fire codes, and housing code of the village. At the time that was adopted, the board indicated that they may want to consider licensing at a future date single-family attached and detached units, as well as duplexes that are offered for rent. I think Trustee Emery brought this up most recently about a month and a half ago or so, that she would like this placed on an agenda for consideration, so here we are. I had previously done research as to what are the constitutional limits on such a licensing regulatory scheme for multifamily houses, found that there was ample legal support for doing so. I've recently done the same for single-family/duplex licensing schemes and found they have been routinely upheld by the courts, again, provided that the purpose is not crime prevention or some other purpose, but that the purpose is for code enforcement reasons. Provided that you don't go into a unit without the resident's consent, and if you don't have that consent, that you get an administrative search warrant. Administrative search warrants for single-family licensing programs are routinely issued because having a regulatory scheme to ensure code compliance is a proper purpose. You don't need specific evidence of code violations in order to get the search warrant. In order to license, I guess, enact this scheme, it's nice to have some statistical support justifying it. Staff has started putting together some numbers. They're not quite complete yet. House Seal Levine was asked to analyze some of the census data and other data. We found from data that the census doesn't break down, okay, here are single-family or duplex rental units within the village. But they did find out from other sources from years 2005 through 2009 that single-family detached homes made up 4.8% of the village's total rental housing. That's approximately 230 units. Likely that number has increased somewhat since 2009 when that data came out. there's approximately 180 vacant single-family detached homes and 700 vacant two-family and multifamily detached units within the village. Of those total vacant units, 59% of those vacancies are within rental units. I asked Vicki Senesac. She has not come up with hard numbers yet, and she probably could come up with approximations, but she stated that there has been a rise in code violations for single-family houses, and the majority of the complaints have involved rental homes, vacant homes, and foreclosure homes. But again, putting together hard numbers on the exact number of rentals and the exact number of code violations over the past 5 years, for example, is difficult to do, but staff will, at least I think by the next meeting, have an approximation of that for you. Can't probably emphasize this strong enough, but that this is a building code enforcement tool. It's not a crime prevention tool. Certainly, there is some secondary benefit if you improve the appearance and safety of single-family duplex condo rentals. You're likely improving the value. You may be resulting increase in rent, resulting better quality tenant, and resulting reduction in crime that may occur at these properties or people who may be induced to commit crime. If in the course of inspecting for building code violations, there is an open and obvious evidence of a crime, that's the plain view rule, and certainly the village can take action. We can have a police officer present, if nothing else for safety purposes, but police officers cannot perform the building inspections unless they are ICC certified. I spoke with Chief Mulhern. His intention is to have a police officer, if it's within budgetary constraints of the village, to have one ICC certified and help with code inspections. Again, that person would not be there looking for criminal activity. The village cannot be opening up closets and drawers and actively searching for criminal activity, so I hope we don't go down that road. So I guess first you guys need to determine, is there a need for this? Second, you need to determine what is the cost. And that's something that I would, again, I think staff can work on what, if assuming a licensing fee of $75 to $100 per unit, which seems to be within the range of what we found in other communities, find out the man hours it's going to take, the administrative costs, the court costs, et cetera, find out where the village stands. They're currently going to analyze those numbers for the multifamily licensing program. I think the village has received about $113,000 in licensing fees. I think it's on an annual basis. They're still trying to determine the cost associated with that. Fred believes we're operating at a loss on that program, and that any program of this scope is going to have some government subsidy element to it. On the other hand, you've got to consider, is this overreaching government intrusion? I know it was certainly alleged when the multifamily licensing ordinance was considered. In this case, the multifamily buildings are clearly operated by landlords for profit. It is their business. You license other businesses, you can license multifamily units, particularly since those had clearly the highest number of code violations present. Single families rentals, particularly in today's market, are most likely done because someone's underwater on their mortgage, can't pay it, is looking for a tenant to help them cover their costs, or for other similar economic reasons. You certainly do have a percentage of property owners that rent out their single-family houses solely for business purposes. But it's something to consider. And I guess that's all I had at this point. And I guess the plan would be, if there is a desire for more information and to get an ordinance drafted for consideration, we could do that at the next meeting. I believe it's easiest and makes the most sense to take the current multifamily licensing ordinance and just add a single-family duplex condo townhouse rental component to that, rather than having a standalone chapter and kind of recreating the wheel.
I just wanted to point out, it's somewhat easy to identify some costs and some of the revenues that are generated from it. There are other things that are a little more esoteric that you can't identify, and that, includes the quality of life that's improved by having housing units that are of greater quality. Those are just things that are hard to quantify. And that's kind of a longer term perspective as well.
I think it's money to the good in the long run. But one thing I wanted to ask was, what about crime-free housing?
I was just going to bring that up. I forgot to add that. That would likewise be a part of this amendment if it's approved. It would be a requirement for your license that every tenant must sign the crime-free housing addendum. Must be a part of every lease, whether it's a written lease or an oral lease. And that provides the landlord with the right to evict the tenant if there's any criminal activity on the property that's rented.
Good.
I think we're doing some further research to determine, all right, a landlord may be compelled to have that signed, but turn their back on the fact that there's criminal activity and likes the rent that's coming in. So we're going to investigate what other remedies the village has in that regard.
Thank you.
I really want to see this move forward. I think it's something we need. But on the other hand, I don't think we should put the cart before the horse. I think we need to evaluate staffing and costs, and is it going to mean hiring someone? They are spread so thin in that department right now, and they're actually losing a person. So we just really need to make sure that we can afford to administrate it the right way. So
we also have that company that we use to
maybe outsource it.
Outsource it.
Sure.
This way it saves us money. Right
Yeah,
there.
maybe
Done
outsource
Morse,
it.
right.
Sure.
Some of the preliminary talk was maybe this would be smart to initiate at the start of the next fiscal year. You can plan for it between now and then.
If we understand that that's a goal of the board, we can build that into our preliminary budget.
Absolutely.
You can have discussions during the budgeting process about.
This way it kind of gives all the landlords, building owners out there a little notice too, what's coming.
There'll be a number of opportunities for public information about it.
Great.
Well, I think the domino effect goes both up and down. It's if you have code enforcement and better properties, better all that, and then, of course, the other way is that when code enforcement drops, rents drop, and we have a domino effect that we don't want. Just so that everyone understands that, like when Ron says the revenue generated, or we talk about fees, when we institute the fees for something, we're never going to make, we're never going to generate revenue. All it is to bring in fees to try to pay for part of the inspector salaries, outsourcing, whatever. Villages and municipalities, we're always criticized like we're doing all this stuff to make money. Municipalities do not, cannot use it to generate a profit by instituting fees. We don't make money on any of this, so I don't want anybody watching this to think that the use of the term fees or revenue means we're making money. We're not, and that's why I think it's a good idea to put it into the next fiscal year, because it's going to have to be budgeted. It is going to cost us money. We're just going to try to recover what we can to even make up a small part of it. The other thing is, John, when you draft the ordinance, when we get to, that point, you were talking about single-family duplexes. Can you look at, and because I don't remember specifically how multifamily reads, is it 4 units?
3 units or more.
3 units or more. Okay, because like where we live, we have triplexes. There are, there are different structures all over. So rather than make it this is for this, I'd like it to be everything multifamily doesn't cover. That's a rental, you know what I mean? So that we net in everything and we don't miss something in the drafting of it.
Well, you live in a townhouse development.
Yeah, but we have duplexes.
So we will address, it's townhouses, it's condos, it's single-family detached, it's single-family attached, it's everything. And on top of that, it's multifamily, which is 3 units or more. To your point, we'll have a catch-all. But then there are also exclusions. So group homes, nursing homes, things like that. Certain senior complexes are excluded.
Right, that we went through before.
They already get inspected anyhow.
Right.
Yeah.
And anything that's owner occupied, of course.
Yeah, so luckily, a lot of that legwork you already did when you did the multifamily, so we're just, you know.
Yeah. How do we get our arms around identifying all of these rental places? I mean, perhaps, with the condominiums, we work with the homeowners association. With us, we work with the homeowners association. But it's possible and probable that homes will be rented and we'll never know.
Yeah, one thing to look at would be perhaps water bill information. That's going to take quite a bit of legwork, but you can almost compare where do tax bills go versus where do water bills go.
So we almost have to look at every home.
But certainly, just by publicizing this, getting the word out, letting people know this is a requirement, and there are steep fines for not doing it, and the fines increase by a substantial amount every month that you don't register. If you get caught, you're going to have some.
You're going to pay.
You're going to pay.
Well, this is another neighbor see it, report it type thing, because like when we drive, when we come down Lincoln, that one little house is for rent, we're like, ooh, rental, where we can start.
I know that.
Paying attention to properties, because that's how we do it down by us. We've enacted new bylaws as far as rental properties, and we know who all the renters are by two things. One, the bills, because the assessments, if they go to the owner that is at a different address, then we know obviously it's not owner occupied. And the other way is the first person reported is a neighbor.
When you talked to other communities about this, what was their success rate, or what did they have to say when they decided to do a single family?
Have not talked to other communities. Found Ron actually found, and I'll distribute this because I was going to bring it tonight, and it's sitting on my desk in a big copied stack. St. Charles had analyzed this. They had a real nice staff report, something I think we'd like to get out to you so you have something to actually look at next meeting, along with their draft ordinance. But they also had done a survey of some communities that have these licensing programs, what their fees are, how many personnel are involved in it. Quite a number of communities have these licensing ordinances, not only for multifamily, but single family. What the success rate is, I don't know, but maybe we can start doing some investigation.
Okay. Great.
How do you, is there a definition on the code for single families? I mean, I can understand multifamilies. They were constructed, you rarely do any changes. That's where we kind of picked up on where a 4-unit was turned into a 5-unit. When you come to single-family homes, especially the age of many of these homes that have gone through 5 or 6 owners, things have been changed, walls might have been moved. Are they going back by the original blueprint that the house will probably never look like it again, or are they going by just making sure outlets are proper? I mean, they have...
It's property maintenance stuff, mostly. It's smoke detectors, it's handrails going down to basements, it's if there's safety lighting that has to be in place, it's stuff like that. It's that there's not exposed wiring.
But obviously then single family would be different. You don't need lighting going down steps or something. So obviously, I would like to see what codes to look for. I'd like to even know if my house isn't, because I know my house was changed before we bought it. And so we even updated it.
I would imagine or assume that staff will come up with a checklist as they did with multifamily.
Yeah.
And that would be really helpful because maybe the residents, as you're saying, would even want to know just for their own home.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know, because I know when we bought our house, we knew the wiring in the basement was illegal, and we disconnected some of the stuff, and then when we redid the basement, we put the conduit and made it legal. But the village is just going to see an open basement. As far as I know, whoever started it, I don't think they went in and did any blueprints, and that's what, I don't want other people to panic either. Especially
there's a difference. If it is a rental property, you're not going to get people that have a single-family house that are owner-occupied that need to panic. Once it goes out for rental,
I'm looking at the ones who are trying to sell, and they can't sell, so they're renting it for now, maybe for a year, 2 years, 5 years. They're out of. My sister went out of state for several years and then came back. They rented their home while they were gone. these are the people, you know, we have them here, and I don't want to panic somebody, you know, there. I want to see the codes, what they're doing.
But there's also a safety factor when you rent out your property.
Yeah, but the person renting.
You have people renting that, and you have to make sure that that house is safe for those people to be in.
Right, but you're going to presume because you're the fifth owner, you don't know that you might not be in code because
Well, they're
the
gonna
house has
find
been
out.
changed. Well, yeah, but then now you're going to take a rental person who's trying to rent a home, because there's also buyer beware. There's also the landlord. It's not like a multifamily. The landlord in a single rental is probably a lot different than one, especially you've got a senior who might have passed away. The family's going to rent the house till they can sell it. They have no idea if that house
think
has
there's
been
a
in
million
code.
different
So you're going to
what-ifs
hit them
out
with
there.
a, you know,
I think that's up to the staff to be able to handle
Right.
things like that. Like the fire department handles certain things and the police department handles certain things. There has to be
I
given
want
that
to
leeway
see
to
it
be able to
before I
handle that.
approve anything.
I
is
think
what
our
I'm saying.
chief
I'm not going to
is.
approve anything
I
without.
think our
me
chief
knowing.
has something he'd like to add.
To your point, the goal is always compliance. So it's not, we're not, you know, with the multifamily, and staff confirmed this for me just this week, when, you know, they're not out to punish people, they're not out to fine people. They want to give time for people to come into compliance. They understand people have economic difficulties, can't do all this work within 15 days. If it gets to the point where they have to bring someone into court because they're willfully ignoring the ordinance, at that point, they still try and work with the people rather than levy fines, because their ultimate goal is compliance and safety.
So we'll give the people a choice of either buying by the rules of the codes that we enforce, or they have to turn around and sell it for a lesser price. I mean, that's going to be their options of somebody who's stuck
Well,
with
they
a home.
can't rent it, yeah.
Yeah. I'd still think before I vote anything, I want to see it.
When this first, I know when we first started talking about this a couple of years ago, the fire department received a call of a porch fire on the north side of town. Upon our arrival, we got there, small fire on the porch area of a house that had been remodeled. In checking further, we found this single-family home to have another entranceway, and people were coming into the driveway and going up some stairs while we were fighting a fire on the first floor. And then we said, well, who are they? And they said, oh, they're the people that live upstairs. So we have the single-family home that was all of a sudden divided into now like a duplex, all right? Upstairs, downstairs, a different entranceway and everything. All right. Then another car pulled in the driveway, and we found out that these people were living in the garage, because then they converted the garage into another house. So we have three different families living on one piece of property. It's supposed to be single-family residence, and we have three families living, one living in a garage, and then the house is being divided up, one upstairs and one downstairs. And I'm certain if they could have probably found room somewhere else, they were looking at the basement probably for the next one. But this is where this is spun from.
Yeah.
And then we developed it, and we're trying to do the best we can for the village. And along with working with the police department, as far as these rental units, you have different people coming into the neighborhoods, just like you have in the multiple family areas. It's part of making Westmont a safer, cleaner, more prosperous community. And so that's what we have to really focus on. We're not here to play the long arm of government imposing our thoughts on everyone, but we're trying to keep doing the right stuff for the village. So if we keep that focus, but understand what our history is and where we came from, I think we can do really good with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Well said.
I think if we know the codes and make sure the single-family people are aware that we're not out worrying that if they changed a wall or did something, we just want to make sure we know who the rentals are, and, you know, the crime-free is great. I think we'll get a lot more compliance, but if we see people worried about, you know, well, gee, I added an outlet here, even though it might be legitimate outlet done legally, you know, professionally done, but they didn't go and get a permit for it, they're going to be panicking, and they're going to still
Well, usually the
hold.
people that are in compliance are the ones that are the most worried, so.
Well, there's a lot of people who think they might be in compliance and may not realize they're not, because
Well,
they're
but
not the
that's why we're
original.
doing this.
But there's the other people who know they're not.
On a
So-
question like that, though, the issue might be, is it unsafe?
Exactly.
If it's
Right.
unsafe, then
It's
it
not
probably
whether
should
they
be
got-
addressed.
It's not whether they
You
had
could
got
have
a
a safe
permit
house and still
13
have a
years
fire.
ago.
So, I mean,
Well, I'm talking
define
about-
safe and stuff,
Well,
but
what
yeah.
the codes define what is considered to be safe, is what I'm saying.
Right, but I don't know if how many people who are the fifth owner would know that their home is compliant.
They may
They have
not,
to rent.
but I think we want to improve it to make sure it's safe for whoever might be living there.
Right.
I think that's the ultimate goal.
But if it was a single-family home, you wouldn't be improving it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'd be willing to bet you right now, you could go into 90% of the homes in this town, based on the codes that we have on the books right now, and you could find multiple violations of the code. Be it a owner-occupied residence or a rental. I mean, perfect example of what's happened with if you're gonna replace windows in your house now, you have to live by a certain standard and everything else, what you have to do. You have to make sure that you're within the code of what the government says you need to have for windows. So, I mean, you talk about intrusion, and that was intrusion from a state level. That wasn't a local level. So you have to get permits to put windows in. All this is going to do is, from a health and safety standpoint, make sure that the residence is safe to live in. I mean, most anybody who does any work to their home is going to go get the proper documentation they need to do it. Perfect example. You made a comment just a little while ago, Pat. We're changing our time, so we changed the batteries in our smoke alarms and our CO2 detectors. Majority of homes now have those. Some of the rental properties probably don't, but they should have. And those are the things I think that are being looked for more so. I don't think that it'd be a case we're going in and go, that outlet looks like it's been changed. I don't think that's the purpose of this. I think the purpose of this is to make it safe for people to live in a property and make sure that the landlord or the owner of the property sees to it that it's maintained in a proper fashion. I mean, I'm sure Vicki could tell you how many complaints they got from lawns not being mowed from rental properties or, absentee landlords. I don't think it's a case of looking to go after people in a case of code violations per se. It's just going along the same lines of the multifamily ordinance to make sure that, as a property renter, that you're following proper guidelines and that your property meets minimal standards for someone to live there. I mean, and I would just, I would hope that any landlord that has a single-family residence would have the wherewithal to see to it that property is taken care of in such a way that this would not be a problem with them. But unfortunately, as we said with the multifamily, the few ruin it for the whole. And you have some out there that just don't care. And it's unfortunate because with today's times and things that are happening, we as a village owe it to the residents of our town that own properties in this town, where rental properties are in amongst, that those properties are maintained in the proper fashion so it does not deteriorate the property values of other homes in the area. It's that simple. I mean, I can't look at it any other way than that. I'm not out looking to go in,
We're not trying to catch somebody.
Trying to catch somebody or set
Yeah.
a trap for anybody. That's not what the purpose
It's
of
a
this
safety
is.
issue, that's all it
Definitely a
is.
safety
Let's face it, Pat, if you were going to sit there and go out and buy a new home and you were, house next to you that you were looking at was a rental and it was a dump, you wouldn't buy it.
Never used to bother. I've been trained to keep my eyes on my own property. If the people next door is a dump, I have the option of not buying that house, or I have the option of buying it if it's there and I know it's there. So I'm just saying that people in some of these homes may not know they have, because the codes years ago are different than what they are now. So I don't know if you're gonna have them upgrade to the current code and go through that expense because it was a house built in the 50s.
Do you have a problem with people
Because
living in
they're
a
now
house that's
renting?
not safe?
The houses in the 50s are fine, aren't they?
Do you have a problem with the people living in a house that's not safe?
It's their problem. Yes, I do have a problem. If it was me, I would take care of it myself. If it was a rental, I would look at it myself. There is a time you have to say buyer beware, or owner beware, or renter beware.
problem-
If it's an older house, you can check into it. You can hire a company to say, is this up to code? Is there a wiring problem? We did it for my daughter. There was a wiring problem. We fixed it. You know, it was a buyer beware. We hired a person to check it out, and that's still how things should be going. It still is a buyer beware. How much responsibility can we put on a government? Because you put that responsibility on the government, and there is a problem, then of course our hands are washed. We have indemnity or whatever you call it. We're not responsible should something get missed.
Pat, I disagree with you. There is no renter beware. There is buyer beware, and you hire, and no title company is going to, wait a minute, no title company is going to insure title without a housing inspection and all of that. Renters, there is no renter beware. That is not fair to say renter beware in Westmont. The purpose of a single-family rental and to expand our rental code is for safety. That is the purpose. And I'll tell you, if you're saying people want to rent, and if the wiring's faulty, hey, your problem, I disagree with you. 100%.
They expect the government to have rules and regulations to make sure that that house is safe. Usually when you go rent an apartment, they're like that, you don't get an inspector to go in there first. That's the government's job, to make sure the inspectors have inspected that building, to make sure it's a safe habitat for them to bring their kids in.
I understand that part, but I'm saying that this is new when you start encompassing the thousands of single-family homes compared to the multifamily. We are now getting in a closer, tighter-knit area, and you got to.
This is only rental. We're not talking single-family everybody. We're not going to go into the single-family homes that people own. We're just talking rental.
I understand.
Well, I'll tell you, I live in a duplex, and the building that I share, the owner next door is owner-occupied. But if that were to go for rent, I sure would want it to be safe, especially in a duplex.
Yeah. We got party walls that
you're in a duplex.
You know.
Exactly.
I'm talking single wall.
So are you saying we shouldn't do this? I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'd like to see the codes and how far we're going to be pushing the people who haven't been able to sell their house because of the economy. And then we push this law into effect, and then they're going to try to rent it because they have to move out of state. And then we're going to say, well, we went through and the house was built in the 50s. Now you have to upgrade your wiring. You have to do this. You have to do that. They could be hit with, what, $10,000?
It only helps the landlord, though. It only helps the landlord because if something, God forbid, were to happen and a fire were to happen because of faulty
liability
conduit.
But I think that's a legitimate point.
The landlord's going to get nailed.
What codes are being enforced? How's the village going to enforce them? That's a good question that everyone would want to know, and I think at the next meeting we can have that answer.
Right, because we could debate this for hours, and it's going to be the same thing like the multifamily, so
I'm not worried about
take a look at it.
Have professionals on staff that can come up with.
But you bring up a good point, Pat. You really do.
The old homes will be rentals.
I did a good point.
very
That's what
quickly-
Jen's going to take care of, and so we all know what we're dealing with.
I found a sample of a checklist in a community that already has a program, and I'll
For single family?
It incorporates both, and I'll send that out to you, but
Okay.
just cautionary note, it's by heading, and it makes reference to code citations. So you can look at the heading, but you can't really tell what the code says unless you look at the code itself. But it'll give you some idea of the categories of things.
Yeah.
It's a single sheet piece of paper.
Because, I mean, I
I'll
like the
send that
idea of
out
the
tomorrow.
mowing, I like the idea of the signing the waiver. It's just a matter of how far into this safety are we going to make a house in the 40s?
Oh, I think staff can make a recommendation. I mean, it's, we have staff, we have professionals on staff that are well qualified to come up with this list. And we could talk about it until we're blue in the face. And guess what? Not one professional sitting on this board. So
we took our time with the multi, and I'd like to make sure we've
And you're
seen
right.
all the
You're right.
corners of this single family before we step into some hot water.
Sure.
The other point that I just want to make as I'm listening to the conversation is that there are, the building codes differ for existing buildings. There's adopted codes that specifically pertain to older structures versus new construction.
Okay.
So the regulations aren't necessarily going to be the same.
So turning an older home into a rental is not going to be encompassing on the owner as long as they're within code?
It's not categorized by year or anything like that, but the code is for existing buildings instead of taking an old building and putting it up against the criteria for brand new construction.
Great.
Great.
Excellent.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that Obviously, we don't have enough funding presently to continue to do the inspection of our multi-unit apartment buildings that we would like. We're going to add single-family homes, rental units to the mix. I think it's a great idea. I think it's good to have it on the books and use it when it's absolutely necessary.
Yep.
But to say that we're going to go out and just look for all these violations and trap these people, it's just not true. You can have a house built in the 30s, 40s, 50s, immaculately maintained. A lot of people take very, very good care of their house, even when they're older. And, you know, it's just making sure, like it was brought up here, your handrails, your smoke detectors, your electrical outlets, they're not trying to force people to spend tens of thousands of dollars. They're just trying to make sure that they're safe for a family to live in.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to see that in writing.
Yeah.
And, you know, to move ahead with it as our finances allow us to. But to have that on the books, so when we have those terrible situations,
We can address
go
them.
in and take care of them.
Very important.
Take care of them.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, moving right along. I have 2 requests for proclamations.
Go ahead and just place holidays on.
The first one was given to me by
We did that first.
Mrs. Virginia Geary. She's the American Indian chairperson of the Downers Grove chapter of the National Society Daughters of the Revolution. And it reads as follows. Proclamation for American Indian Heritage Month in Westmont for November 2011. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples. And whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today. And whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States. Native American Awareness Week began in 1976, and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George H.W. Bush in August 1990, and proclamations issued by President Barack Obama designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations have been planned as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities. I therefore, as Mayor of Westmont, do urge all of our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities in celebration of the American Indian Heritage Month. And the next request that I received is regarding the National Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, which reads as follows. A proclamation declaring November 2011 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas in 2011, an estimated 44,030 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 37,660 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and is the 4th leading cause of cancer death in the United States. When symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is usually too late for an optimistic prognosis, and 74% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas of all the racial ethnic groups in the U.S., African Americans have the highest incident rate of pancreatic cancer, between 34 and 70% higher than other groups. Approximately 1,610 deaths will occur in Illinois in 2011. Whereas there is no cure for pancreatic cancer, and there have been no significant improvement in survival rates in the last 40 years. Whereas the federal government invests significantly less money in pancreatic cancer reach than it does in any other leading cancer killers. And pancreatic cancer research constitutes only 2% of the National Cancer Institute federal research funding, a figure far too low given the severity of the disease, its mortality rate, and how little is known and how to arrest it. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the first and only national patient advocacy organization that serves the pancreatic cancer community in Westmont and nationwide by focusing its efforts on public policy, research funding, patient services, public awareness, and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. The Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in Westmont support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease and are committed to nothing less than a cure. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the Village of Westmont enhances as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection causes and effective treatments. I, therefore, William Ron, Mayor of Westmont, do hereby proclaim November 2011 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month here in the Village of Westmont. Thank you. Moving right along, meeting consolidation, or to consider an ordinance creating guidelines under which village board and committee of the whole meetings may be consolidated.
Okay, this was an item, as you know, we've had discussions about for some time. There was a decision made towards the beginning of the fiscal year that we would try consolidation on a number of occasions to see how well it would work out. The last time we had discussion about this was on August 11th, and there was a pretty good debate about it. And at the end of that debate, the direction was to place it on an agenda for kind of further and hopefully final discussion, decision. Have not done that to date because most of our meeting agendas have been very, very long. And this actually seemed like a good opportunity. I thought we would be to this point earlier in the evening, but we're not. But in the write-up, I just tried to offer some points to consider, things based on our experience to date and based on what I've heard trustees talk about as being concerns that you may have about consolidating meetings. And it's just throwing it out there for discussion, and we're looking for some direction. But I'll just read those points for the public's benefit. They included establishing a threshold number of items on the agenda. So in other words, if it exceeded a certain range of items, we would simply say it's not a candidate for consolidation. Automatically disqualifying an agenda for consolidation if any of the agenda items either legally required a public hearing at that board meeting or they came to that board through a legally required public hearing process through the Planning and Zoning Commission, because sometimes you have members of the public, you know, that want to speak at those meetings, and there's been some concern about, you know, there being some confusion as to when they'll have an opportunity to do that. Another concern that was expressed, trying to address, was only allow consolidation to a regular Monday meeting night and not a committee of the whole meeting. We only did that once, and that was a concern that was discussed. And then just a final thought was to have like an objection procedure that, you know, a decision to consolidate could be overridden either by the mayor himself individually or by at least two trustees if you saw the consolidated agenda and, you know, notified our office, you know, 48 hours prior to that canceled meeting day, which would be the Thursday meeting, because we would not hold a consolidated meeting on Thursdays any longer. Those are just things for discussion, certainly not meant to be the only items for consideration, but just to try to help frame the discussion.
I'd like to table the item till the first meetings in December.
table this discussion to the first meeting?
Postpone
in
it.
December?
Postpone it.
On what I mean, why?
Because there's some factors that were brought up tonight. We've got an executive session. This could
So
go
just in the
another
interest of
hour.
time?
That plus these different things that the village manager has put in, this is...
To kind of think about.
Yeah, I want to, I want to mull those over because a couple of them are something where it's like, well, I didn't think about that before.
Yeah. Ron, on the survey you did for us? Or
I
somebody did?
Well, I didn't actually do the survey. That came from DuPage Managers and Managers. That's a survey that's about a little over a year old.
Okay.
And then the cover sheet was just some calculations that we had put together for the budget purpose to give you some idea of the cost.
It's interesting, but now if we are going to table it, which is probably a really good idea.
Postpone it.
Or postpone it, table it, postpone it, whatever you want to, you call it, I say potato, you say
table
potato.
it, you have to bring it back off the table the same night, so you postpone it.
Okay, potato, whatever. Anyway, could we find out how frequently these municipalities meet? We have salary information, but it doesn't say they meet twice a month, 4 times a month, 10 times a month, once a month.
Sure.
Could we find out?
Because some of the municipalities,
interesting,
they do, what do they call it?
Consent agendas.
Or they do consent agendas,
Exactly.
they do workshops, which we call our committee of the whole. They call workshops and they start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
Right.
They go through everything and then they start the board meeting at 8 o'clock and go through the whole thing again. And, there's
There's a lot of
different
ways to
that
look at it.
people do it. So in addition to the compensation, I'd like to see options in getting the work done, how they do it on a calendar.
I agree. I think that's good.
Possibly even looking into because the one alderman that I know, I thought she mentioned that they even got paid for committee meetings, not just board meetings. Now, maybe they have just board meetings, not committee of the whole, so they have a committee meeting and a board meeting, but it sounded like there was more. So even though they may just say they have 1 or 2 board meetings a month, maybe there's committee meetings that they end up going to and a salary involved in it. So.
Sounds good.
Good.
And you got plenty of time to do your homework.
Sounds good.
So
Do we need a motion to postpone?
On Monday.
We'll put it on the agenda to postpone it.
Finance ordinance number 13.
Waive the reading.
I have a couple of questions. I have to say it quick before the... Spencer, you've been sitting here diligently. I have a question where we have, like, for instance, in the detail board report, for action towing, it's a tow fee for a seized vehicle. And under our ordinances, we're going to, in order for if somebody's going to pick up the car, they have to pay the towing fee. Is there anything that we can put on in our report that somewhere, like, I don't know if it's a different column or new column, with an R that says it's reimbursable? So we know that for a invoice that's being paid, that we're going to get reimbursed from it from another source? Because we do have a number of things that we get reimbursements for, but this just shows the money going out.
Yes, this does just show the money going out. We can see if our system can be able to add additional comments onto the report. I believe that we can do that through the purchase order process. We can release other items to go instead of just the dollar amount. There can be additional descriptions included.
Yeah, because, maybe I'm the only one that wants to see it, but I would like to see things that we expect to get reimbursed on.
So not necessarily what the dollar value is at that moment, but just the fact that
Right,
it's going to
because
be reimbursed at some point.
seized vehicle, we expect that when the person, gets it out of impound, they're going to have to pay for it, and we're going to get reimbursed.
Or if we have an insurance claim that exceeds our deductible, we'll
Right.
get...
Or we've paid money out for a grant.
Right, you noted as an R that it's reimbursable.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Grant money, I mean, it could be a number of things.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll be short. Take your time.
The seized vehicles are not the administrative tow seized vehicles. These are vehicles that will be seized for a drug arrest, DUI arrest, or something like that, where we have to wait until the judge either returns the vehicle to the owner or allows us to sell the vehicle. At that time, we get our reimbursement from the state that offsets some of the tow things. So
At
it's
some
not the
point, it
administrative tow. I
should
just
be
wanted to make sure.
reimbursable, though? It's not like an impounded?
If we try to seize a vehicle and the judge gives it back to the owner, we don't get reimbursed.
Okay. All right, but that was just an example. Other things, you know, if they are reimbursable.
So you'd be fine with just simply like an R to designate that?
Either that or a caveat on there. We have a page that's a summary of all this stuff, so you can see what's been paid up to date and stuff. Is there any way that you could do the summary per month, you know, that tells us that this month we received this much money back, whether it was insurance related or reimbursable? You could put an R if she sees an R for reimbursable, then we might see the R come back on a summary of all the money that came back in. It would be nice to see that, especially if it was an insurance claim that we got paid or...
We do get monthly insurance reports that have quite a bit of detail that actually show recovered amounts.
Well, that'd be insurance portion, but I mean, any other reason we get it, we see money going out for people who are getting a refund, I think, on their permits. So, but we never saw what came in for that. So, I was just wondering, it doesn't have to be anything soon, but in the back of your mind, if there was a
we can certainly
little summary that would
Sure.
show us what we got actually that came in would be nice.
Yeah, we can start putting together some sort of report that would show those sort of revenues, things that would offset expenses, those kind of things that we can present. You're looking just for like an aggregate amount. This is the amount that came in for these different types of things, just in general like that.
I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more going out, but it would be nice to see something showing that came in. That was a good idea. I like the R idea.
Yeah.
I also have a question on the payments to the Westmont Chamber. There's a purchase order, but also in the finance detail report, it just says tourism projects. Now, I know we budgeted for the chamber. Do they give us, there's invoice numbers that you're responding to. Do they give us any more detail other than, I mean, we're talking almost $60,000 worth of tourism projects.
Right, so the roughly $40,000 that's on the purchase order is the amount that was budgeted for the tourism type projects. It's the total amount, and then from that, we're paying, at this time, we're paying them $15,000. $5,000 of that is specifically for assign the high school, and they're getting this up for advertising. And then the other $10,000 is just sort of, as we've done previously, kind of the first installment for these different projects. They did give us a budget, and we can certainly get you a copy as to what the amount that we had budgeted is going to be covering for all of those. I believe
We do have attached
that
to it
here.
their report that they give every year. I mean, we could go down here and total up those things or have them identify which of those things are within here that have
Yeah,
been
because
counted.
I'm not seeing that report. All I've got is the purchase order and then the,
Yeah, this is actually the detailed finance.
Oh,
purchase.
okay.
But I'll be happy to make copies and circulate this.
and then for the State of Village address, it has the payments that were made for the luncheon for the various department heads and the mayor and spouse. But then it has State of Village address, $120, State of Village address, $60. What are these additional State of the Village address payments beyond the delineated ones to various department heads? It's pages
I've got all the detail
31 and
here.
32.
Do you want me just to make you copies? This gives you all the detail. Okay.
Yeah. And then lastly, you know, we decided we didn't need any badges. We've got on page 33, You and Me, Inc., ID cases, artwork setup charge, and shipping, almost $500 for ID cases. Who's
Yes.
that for?
We have purchased those ID card cases that we talked about purchasing. I have not had a chance to have those distributed. I think you guys talked about reimbursing for that.
All right, it must have been a meeting I wasn't there because I don't remember a discussion about ID cases. Mine's in my wallet by my driver's license, and I'm pretty happy with it right there.
I
think what was discussed-
remember we talked about it a
Left it
little
up to
bit,
Ron.
but the thing was that if you wanted something like that, that's fine. You go order it on your own, you pay for it up front, and you're done with it. But I don't think it was a
He
case
was going to get
that-
information for us, but we never gave him the permission to do it as a whole board, because there was, I think the majority of us said we didn't want them.
Right.
And if we were going to buy them, it would be out of our own pockets, and I think that was all that agreed on it. That
Right,
wasn't an
yeah.
issue at that point.
Okay,
But I think to do it for the whole
I will go back
board.
and review that meeting. I thought there was a different direction than that. That's very easy.
If you've got them, and obviously we're stuck with them, I'll be happy to reimburse my portion of it, but like I say, news to me on ID cases, so. That's all I have. Thanks.
Any other questions on finance ordinance?
That is the
Purchase orders.
August 1st meeting. I will go back and listen to it.
Questions on purchase orders?
Nope.
That being said, unless there's something else to come before the board, I would take a motion to go into executive session regarding personnel and pending litigation.
So moved, Emery.
Second.
Whatever.
Roll call.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Thank you. We are adjourned to executive session.